Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to another narrated Pokemon Wi-Fi battle. Today's battle is an overused match against an opponent by the name of MrCashSplash, and this is actually the first of two matches that we've had together, the second one being an underused match that I will upload at a later date. But as you can see, my opponent decided to bring a rain team to this battle, and I'm bringing just a pretty fun mix of Pokemon, kind of centered around Celebi, Rotom and Heatran as kind of my defensive guys, and then Swords Dance Scizor with a Scarf Terrakion, and then a Rain Dance Kingdra to take advantage of my opponent's rain, and also set it up for myself if my opponent is using a different weather. However, after this battle, I am strongly considering swapping out Kingdra for Ludicolo, because you'll see at one point in the battle where it would have been much more helpful to have a Ludicolo as opposed to a Kingdra. But with that, let's just jump into things right now and see how it goes. So to start things off, I lead off with my Rotom as my opponent leads off with his Scizor. Now, being a defensive Rotom, I do pack the Will-O-Wisp, so I'm going to want to go for that first turn, except I do miss, which really sucks because this U-turn is going to do a ton of damage. It's probably a banded U-turn, and that would have done actually half that damage if I did get the burn off. But what can you do about first turn hacks? Either way, my opponent does U-turn out into Keldeo, and I know I have a very solid switch into that in my Celebi because obviously I'm going to be resisting both of its stab, and obviously this is a defensive variant, so I'm pretty safe in just bringing this in on this Keldeo for pretty much the entirety of the battle. But I do go for the Giga Drain right here, not really wanting to predict too early in the battle, but he goes out into his Ferrothorn, and luckily for me, I do pack the Hidden Power Fire on this Celebi for Pokemon like this, and for Scizors, which will obviously want to come in and U-turn on me, but since Celebi will outspeed, Hidden Power Fire will do a very good amount of damage to those guys. But as you can see right there, my opponent actually predicted me to switch out, not really expecting me to have anything to hurt this Ferrothorn, but I just go for the Hidden Power Fire, and then on the following turn, knowing that he was going to probably switch out into something, maybe even the Keldeo, I decided to go for the Thunder Wave right there, which is going to paralyze this Politoed. But either way, my Celebi is still safe to stay in here right now because Politoed is pretty much, a bad matchup for my opponents because obviously I'm a Grass type and I have Giga Drain. So I predicted him to switch out yet again and go for another Thunder Wave, which is really good because I do get it on the Scizor, which is going to help me and help my Scizor outspeed his, but it also kind of sucks because I would have rather just had it burned to begin with. But either way, I go out into my Scizor to take the U-turn because I don't really have too much to do that. And then as he switches back out into his Keldeo, I'm like, well, probably can just easily go back out into my Celebi. He goes with the Hydro Pump right here, and that's in rain, and that still doesn't do too much damage. I also pack Recovery on the Celebi, so it's not going to be that big of a deal because I can just go for that. But I did predict him to switch out right here into a Scizor, go for the Hidden Power Fire, which is going to do a really good chunk of damage. But because the rain is up, this is going to fail to 2-hit KO. Kind of the advantages of running a rain team, obviously, but I again have to switch out, and unfortunately I have to kind of sacrifice my Rotom here. But luckily for me, he does get paralyzed, which means that I'm actually able to get off a Hydro Pump, which is really good because I'm able to take out the Scizor now. But he's going to bring in Breloom here, and I really don't know what to do in this situation. If I switch out, something's going to get put to sleep, so I might as well have just stayed in. I went for the Will-O-Wisp right there, hoping he might go for the Spore or not go for Mach Punch, or maybe I could live a Mach Punch, but unfortunately I cannot, so my Rotom goes down. But I figured this is a perfect opportunity to bring in my Kingdra right here. I go for the Dragon Pulse because obviously Hydro Pump would have not been hitting Surf would have not been hitting the Breloom too hard. But he brings in his Ferrothorn right here, and I know I still have a perfect switch out into my Celebi right here for this situation. So I do that as he sets up a layer of spikes, and then I just proceed to go for the Hidden Power Fire on the next turn. I believe that will take 2 more to take out this Ferrothorn in rain now that this is going to be doing half the damage that it did before. But he decides to set up 1 layer of spikes, then go for a Gyro Ball, which I thought was a little weird because I am a physically defensive Celebi. He might not have known that, but I figured a second layer of spikes there would have probably been a better option, or just switching out entirely. But I'm able to actually KO this Ferrothorn right now, which is really great for me because this Pokemon was kind of a threat to preventing my Kingdra from sweeping later in the battle. But either way, he does go into Gengar right now, and I cannot stay in for that because I don't want to take a Shadow Ball. But I also do know that he's going to obviously go for the Substitute because that's what all Gengars do. So I go out into my Scizor here to go for the Bullet Punch, get rid of the sub, and then bring in a counter on the following turn, expecting my Scizor to die to either a Focus Blast or 2 Shadow Balls. I'm not really sure, but either way, go for the first Bullet Punch, and I know that Gengar is extremely frail, so I 100% thought my opponent was going to switch out into something right here, since he has a Politoed and a Keldeo to both take a Bullet Punch. But he doesn't switch, which confused the hell out of me. I didn't go for Bullet Punch right there, I actually went for Swords Dance, predicting him to switch. So I kind of lose my Scizor because I was expecting my opponent to do something that he did not do. But either way, I have my Kingdra in right here. It's going to threaten out this Gengar very easily as I go for the Surf, which actually does a considerable amount of damage to this Politoed. Considering the fact that this Politoed is most likely a defensive variant, probably physically defensive though, but this is Life Orbed and in Rain and Stab. And then I go for a Hidden Power here, which I thought at the time was Hidden Power Grass. Turns out it's actually Hidden Power Fighting, and I'll explain that maybe later in the battle. But I do get a crit, so it kind of created the same result regardless, because that would have just done the same amount of damage as a Hidden Power Grass. And here is where, as I said before, it would have been much more helpful to have a Ludicolo as opposed to a Kingdra. But either way, I kind of predicted that Protect right there, and I really wanted to switch out into Celebi, but I had to stay in. I had to try and kill it, because as soon as I brought in my Celebi to probably take out the Politoed, I knew that it was going to be threatened out by Gengar on the following turn anyway. But either way, he manages to Protect, goes for a second one, doesn't get it, but I'm able to take him out on the following turn with a Surf. But now he has this freaking Breloom in here, and I can't do anything about it. I could have switched out, but either way, if I switched out, it wouldn't have mattered too much because something would have just got put to sleep afterwards. So I bring in my Celebi right here, and I go for the Thunder Wave, hopefully trying to give me a turn of advantage on this thing. It does have priority, obviously, as you saw in Mach Punch, but if it does get paralyzed in a turn it wants to go for priority, it still kind of works out for me. So either way, I'm just going to want to go for the Recover as soon as I can possibly can with that Celebi to make it last longer in battle. But I switch out into my Terrakion right here, kind of expecting him to switch because obviously I can't really touch his Gengar with my Celebi, so I thought he was going to go out into that. But he goes for the Swords Dance instead, and I'm like, well crap, something has to take a Mach Punch, so it's got to be my Heatran. And I didn't go back out into Celebi because I figured I wasn't going to be able to take 2 after Spike's damage. But now I go into this because I know that if he does get the if he does Mach Punch, I will be able to take 2 because I can just recover up. Turns out he isn't even going for it. I think he's actually going for Bullet Seed, or he's going to try to Spore me again, obviously because of Natural Cure, which is why I don't have the sleep induced on me anymore as I switched out. But luckily for me, I actually get 2 paralyzations in a row, which is really great, which is kind of why I have Thunder Wave on this Celebi anyway. And then he goes for a Mach Punch right here. As you can see, I probably would not have been able to take 2, to be completely honest, if I did bring the Celebi in to take that. But either way, I'm just going to go for the recover right here, knowing that he is going to die to Life Orb if he does not get paralyzed. So that was a very safe move for me to go for. But here he has his Gengar in here, and I know he's going to sub. So I go for the Giga Drain, expecting that to be more powerful, obviously, than Hidden Power Fire, even though it's neutral, but it's in the rain, so I'm pretty sure Giga Drain does more damage. But when I saw that it did not break the sub, I freaked out here, because Gengar has pretty awful defense, and I know it resists it, but Celebi's base 100 special attack kind of thought it was going to break the sub, so I'm going to maybe look into that in the future. But either way, go for another Giga Drain to break the sub on the following turn as he Shadow Balls, which does a ton of damage, and then me expecting him to just go for a substitute again on the following turn, knowing that I cannot break it with a Giga Drain, and then he would just have a sub up against the rest of my team. I stay in here, and I could have very easily went out into Terrakion right here. It is Scarf, so it would have outspeeded, but I totally expected him to go for sub right there, so that's why I stayed in. It really didn't matter for me at that point, so I really didn't know what to do. But I'm able to bring in my Terrakion right here, have to lock myself into one move, probably going to be Stone Edge, because I obviously can't lock myself into close combat. Take out this Gengar, but now all he has left is this Keldeo, which is going to resist my Stone Edge. So even if I got a crit, I don't know if that would have killed, but it turns out his Keldeo is also Scarfed. He wins the speed tie and is able to take out my Terrakion for the victory. So that was a very, very stressful battle for me, at least, because the fact that there were a lot of situations where I thought my opponent was going to do something and then didn't. So I kind of just made a bad play right there in a couple of situations. Also, not getting the burn first turn really sucked. But either way, as I said before, my Kingdra has Hidden Power Fighting, which I use this Kingdra in UU as well, and that's mainly for Empoleon, which is I think the only thing in UU that resists both Surf and Dragon Pulse. So that's the only reason I have that on there. I should, though, in the future switch this out for Ludicolo, just because it matches up much better against rain teams than Kingdra does, even though Kingdra is still very threatening in rain. But the reasoning for using Kingdra, obviously, is because it does have a 4x fire resist and a 4x water resist, which is very useful against sun teams and rain teams, so I could get more opportunities to set up a rain dance against the sun team with Kingdra than I would with Ludicolo. So it's kind of a toss-up, but either way, the point of them is to, set up rain, cancel out another opponent's weather, or abuse the rain that's already up and to sweep from there. But either way, that is pretty much it for this battle. So thank you, MrCashSplash, for this battle. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed, using this team against you. And you have a pretty sick rain team that was very hard to deal with. But that's it for this video, everyone. So as always, take care, goodbye, and I will see you all next time.